Welcome to Growing in Uncertainty, my weekly show. My name is Tess Miller. I'm a seminar and coaching, I have a seminar and coaching business called Wings Unfolded. I focus on helping professionals who love what they do, but they're really not sure where it's going. My intention with these videos is to let you look under the hood, so to speak, of how I work with the uncertainties in my own life. My experience is that there are massive opportunities to grow towards your full potential when your life is actually really uncertain. So I hope that what I share helps you work with and grow from any uncertainty that you might have in your life. Today I want to talk about freedom using a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As you likely know, yesterday was MLK Day. And since he had a lot to say about freedom, I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to be inspired by some of his words. The quote of his I'll be looking at is, "I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." So let's first look at the word judged. We seem to be really good at judging as human beings. Judgment can be a good thing. In fact, it can be a really necessary thing. It helps us survive. But it can also be really hurtful if you're not applying judgment in a mindful and fair way. That is what MLK is referring to when people use judgment to limit others in unfair ways. In Dr. King's time, segregation still blatantly existed in the South. White people were exclusionary, preventing people of color from jobs, homes, businesses, and any of the same opportunities that white people had. I shared in my weekly email a story about a friend of mine from when I was 7 whose family moved out of the school district. My friend, this was, by the way, this was in the 1980s. And it was in Michigan, just to give you a framework. They were one of the only Black families in my school district. And the reason for the move, I found out, was because of the way they were being treated. They felt judged by their skin color. They felt unsafe, and they decided to leave. This kind of judgment is particularly painful because it's about something that is out of the control of the person being judged. Obviously, this is the opposite of freedom. So let's look at the other part of that quote, the part about looking at the content of character. Character consists of the qualities that make you, you. Character is something that we cultivate throughout our lives. It can have to do with how we put our values into practice in our lives. And it can be how we express our values into the world and to others. When someone's being judged by the content of their character, there's more substance being weighed. Skin color is not really something that can be controlled. Height cannot really be controlled unless you insist on wearing platform shoes. Character can be developed, molded, and refined over time. People's characters evolve over time. When you look at people's character, you are looking at them with your own character. That's something that can really make you think. As a coach, I see clients who want to develop their character. They're taking control of the direction of their lives. They develop an awareness of themselves so that the higher qualities of their character can be used instead of some of the qualities that they view as being inferior. They're open to learning more about how they show up in the world. Sometimes the way that we show up works against us. And when we work on those aspects of ourselves that might be showing up in a way that we don't intend, we can devise new ways of showing up that might work in our favor. When we're aware of how we show up, we feel empowered to continue learning, to continue growing and adjusting our character and make our lives better and more whole. Working on character takes courage and inner resolve. Obviously, if you're watching this right now, you are interested and on the path to developing your character. So bravo. As you can see, I've never had the experience of being judged and excluded from life opportunities because of the color of my skin. But I find it an interesting exercise to see all the ways that we as humans can and do judge and discriminate others for things that they can't control. When I do this exercise, it helps me open my mind to ways that I might be judging others for things that they can't control. And becoming more aware, as I said earlier, helps me become a better version of myself. When I show up as a better version of myself, my relationships are better, and people feel like they can be better versions of themselves around me too. Our society has a tendency to organize people in a hierarchy so that we know where we fit in. We start with this fairly young. Kids separate into groups or cliques very quickly. Do they do this by instinct, or is it learned from the adults? I'm sure there are lots of studies out there about this, so I guess, go down that rabbit hole. I'm sure that we've all experienced this in some way in our lives as well. Suffice it to say, this pattern will continue unless we start to question it. So let's pretend that separating in groups is simply how we're wired. That means that we're wired to wet the bed when we're kids too, right? I did it, admittedly, I did. But somehow we get over that one pretty quickly, relatively speaking. We're also wired to cry when we're hungry. Although I might get a bit hangry when I need something to eat, I have not cried when I'm hungry in a very, very long time. You probably haven't either. So here's a thought experiment for you. What could happen if we applied the same kind of intensity to teaching kids about diversity, equity, and inclusion as we do to potty training? What might change for our society? So the first step to developing more awareness around judgment through bias and discrimination is to look at some experiences from your own life when you were excluded for a reason you couldn't control, or when you excluded someone else. I'm going to give you examples of both of these scenarios from my life. One when I was biased, and one when someone was biased toward me. Oh, and it wouldn't be a Growing in Uncertainty episode without a cat cameo. So there you have it. When I was in elementary school, I had two best friends. They are actually still my best friends. We called ourselves in school the Threes. And in the 4th grade, another little girl wanted to join our group. One of my friends was all for it. My other friend and I were so dead set against it. It didn't have anything to do with her looks or her smarts or the way she acted or anything like that. It was simply that we could not wrap our brains around the idea of not being the Threes anymore. What would we be? The Fours? It just didn't make any sense. So for a time, our friend split her time between being with the Threes and being with the newcomer. To this day, I feel really bad about that scenario. I didn't at the time, but with hindsight, I can see what was going on. I prevented myself from having an expanded friend group. I prevented myself learning about someone new and learning from someone new. I prevented so many potential memories and experiences that could have happened with that person. And I hurt someone's feelings pretty badly. I kept my life small and limited in that example. We were not looking at all at the content of that person's character. So now for the reverse example. Over 10 years ago, I was invited to teach at a summer camp. This was a tremendous opportunity for me, and I was honored that the camp had reached out to me. It was a bit last minute because the person they hired wasn't able to come, so I scrambled to make arrangements to be gone for the whole summer, and off I went. Over the course of the summer, I got a chilly vibe from the person that was my supervisor. He would barely look at me. He seemed fine around everyone else, but whenever I came around, it just was different. At the end of camp, he was required to fill out an evaluation for my work, but he'd waited so long that all of my work was done, and there wasn't an opportunity for him to see me in action. He filled the evaluation out anyway, and was required to have me sign it before he could file it. I saw that it was a poor reflection of the work I had done over the summer, and I questioned him about it. He went on to tell me that my credentials were not of the quality he would have liked. He made it very clear that I was not his choice to be the replacement for the person they had originally hired. He asked if I had more plans for my future career to get an actual job. At the time, I was an adjunct instructor at 2 colleges, 1 community music school, and a freelancer all over the state of Michigan. In this scenario, I was not being judged by the content of my work or my character. I had no control over the evaluation. I had no control over his bias against me based on how I looked on paper. However, I did actually have control over my credentials. I could have gotten a full-time job, but I didn't want that for myself. It was my choice to put my family first and have flexibility. It was incredibly painful, but there is a difference, and I honor that between this act of discrimination and the discrimination that others might experience for reasons they have no control over. For people who are discriminated against because of their skin color, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, or differently abledness, there's no way for them to conform to what society asks. We seem to be living in a society that still separates and limits people before they've had the chance to even show the content of their characters. It's my dream, like it was for Dr. King, to end any and all discrimination. How can you help? I want you to think of a time in your life when you were not judged by the content of your character, but by something that was completely out of your control. You were too much of something or not enough of something else. You were the wrong gender. You had the wrong clothes. You spoke the wrong way. How did you feel? What did you do? What are you believing about yourself today because of the judgment you felt from someone else? How free did you feel in this experience? Now take a look at the places where you're judgmental about things that other people can't control. You might not see where you are being judgmental right away. Maybe it's something about a sibling. My brother is so incapable. Maybe it's about an authority figure in your life. My supervisor is so rigid. Question your beliefs about these other people. Where did you get these beliefs? What made you adopt these beliefs? How does their difference from you affect your life really? How might your life be enriched by getting to know these people and what their experience in their lives is? Maybe your brother seems incapable to you because he didn't do something that you wanted him to do. Is that about him or is that about you? Maybe your supervisor seems rigid to you because her job has so many moving parts to keep track of. She feels the whole thing could fall apart in any tiny misstep. Once you've looked at how you judge others, turn it inward. Where do you limit your own freedom by saying you can't do a certain thing? For example, I never thought I could change ukulele strings on my own. It was at the beginning of the pandemic and I desperately needed new strings on my ukulele. But I didn't feel like I could do it. As it turns out, with the help of Dr. YouTube, I discovered that I can change uke strings. So why was I keeping myself small for so long? For whatever reason, I had it in my head that I wasn't smart enough for that. I don't know where I got that belief, but I'm glad that I challenged it. So examine all the ways that you might be keeping yourself small. When you limit yourself, no wonder why you might want to limit other people. The more judgmental you are of yourself, the more you will do that to everyone else in your life. Keep educating yourself. Become aware of all biases that you see inside and out. Keep questioning your beliefs. It's a process. Encourage yourself and others to try new things, meet new people, engage in new experiences. How will doing this contribute to lasting change for equity, inclusion, and diversity? From a coach's perspective, when you're pushing yourself to grow, others will start to notice, and they'll start pushing themselves to push beyond their own limited boundaries. Will this solve all of our problems? No, probably not. We have a lot of work to do. But when you work to feel better about yourself, you'll feel better about everyone around you. You'll feel more secure. When you feel better about everyone around you, you make them feel good about themselves. When others feel good about themselves, they treat others better, and so on. It's a ripple effect, a slow catalyst for inclusion and change. Taking care of yourself is taking care of other people. Limiting yourself is limiting to other people. May you free yourself from bias, discrimination, and judgment this week, and beyond, for that matter. May you truly see the content of people's character, including your own, before using anything else as your barometer. You might be surprised at what happens. And may you also continue to evolve and develop your own character's content. Perhaps in a free session with me. I'm offering free complimentary sessions so you can see what working with me would be like and how it can help you get free from any of the stuck places in your life. To set that up, just go to my website, www.tess-miller.com. I'd love to hear from you on any of my platforms. You can find me on Facebook under my business name, Wings Unfolded. Or you can find me by name, Tess Miller, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Feel free to send me a private message. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want more free stuff, please subscribe to my weekly email list if you have not done so already. That's how you can get updates on my live shows, developments in my offerings, and any free resources I create. And please share any of my resources with others who might need to hear it too. Remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Take care and have an awesome week.